Hello and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene.marie. Y'all, I'm so excited to have someone join me for our 6 a.m. Pacific show. We have not had a guest join us ever at this time, so this really is kind of a first time thing. And I'm so excited that it is Shawn, founder of BYMD. Shawn, you work so closely with entrepreneurs and helping them to really step into. I love how your bio says revealer of brilliance. You help them step into their themselves in the most potent way, helping them know who they are, helping them live authentically, and you're working with them to create the platforms necessary to really kind of step into that light. And I'm so grateful for you being here. I know that there's a lot that we're going to be talking about, and thank you for your time this morning.
Christene, thank you so much. It's an adventure. I don't think I've ever joined anyone on a podcast at 6 in the morning.
Well, I'm so thrilled you're here. You know, as we were talking in the green room, we touched on a couple different topics that I'm really looking forward to bringing to our audience, because as I look back over the genesis of the journey of knowing for myself and for so many others, this conversation is such a poignant kind of stop right at the beginning as you're working to do the work to go back in the past and uncover what were the core moments that really shaped who I am today and who do I want to be, and asking those really important questions in the discovery of knowing who we were, but then also, well, who was I created to be, not just stopping here in this moment. And so this conversation around authenticity, there's been a lot where authenticity has kind of been blurred by society and culture around us, and I think we've actually seen it used improperly. So I would love to hear, how did you stumble into this kind of being a focus of your life, and what does authenticity mean to you?
Well, I think it actually starts with what you kind of just mentioned about becoming who we're called to be.
Mm,
Like, if I didn't have that as the context or as the almost the foundation, it's like I believe every person's like a word from heaven.
mm,
And when you understand that you were like fearfully and wonderfully made, and that like the creator literally was like dreaming about you and the way that you could carry some sort of fingerprint or some expression of the divine, then it's like, well, I don't want to show up in the trend. I don't want to show up in whatever is currently popular. Well, popular CEOs, they sound like this and they talk like this, and this is what they do, and this is what's in right now. So you got to find a way to be in, because that's what that's what success is. And I fundamentally just rejected that because it didn't make my heart come alive. And I realized I could play a game, I could be rewarded for it by the world, but feel like I lost my own soul. And I wasn't willing to do that. And I think there's a lot of people out there that would love permission to be able to find peace, find fulfillment and success inside instead of outside of themselves. And so I don't know, I think part of that was my quest for authenticity. Um, it was just realizing like every father dreams over their children and says like, this is who you can be. And just letting the father dream over me and be like, well, no, this is the light that I want you to shine so that other people can shine the light that they're called to shine.
mm. Man, that's so beautiful. I love that you said it didn't make your heart come alive. Shawn, how did you establish that relationship to even know when your heart was kind of, I like to think of knowing as kind of my heart song. How did you come to know what was that song in your heart, or that aliveness? Like, oh, I'm actually in that moment versus out of it.
Okay, that's a really good question. Um, that's really interesting. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think part of it comes from the experience I had of coming alive. And I would say, like in high school, I was just searching for meaning. Like I'm looking around and I'm seeing so many people that are just caught up in the noise, and they're just caught up in where life is taking them, the parties. And I'm just looking around being like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than this. And I don't know if it was sophomore year of high school, but I really felt like I almost came to that revelation that like the living God is looking for a heart that's completely his. And my heart wasn't completely his, but I wanted it to be. So it's like I realized it was that moment of like, I think he sees me right now. So I found myself on like Friday nights, instead of going out with friends, being in my room, lighting a candle, having the Bible open, and just like crying because I felt like I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was real. Um, and I think that just brought something alive in me where it's like, no, there's this feeling of aliveness where there's like alignment. I think that's probably the best way of when you're not aligned, you can kind of feel it. It's almost like there's no energy flow. You're more exhausted, you're more fatigued. But when things line up, it's almost like there's this freedom to flow. Um, there's more joy in it. There's more like boundless energy. And I think energy is a really great way of putting it because God as light, the Father of lights, you being a child of the Father, where you get to shine your light. I think aliveness is getting to shine the light that we've been given, which takes courage. It's kind of scary to just be like, hey guys, like this is me. And it might be quirky and goofy and silly, but it's all I know how to shine.
So beautifully stated. Aliveness is light. I'm curious, Shawn. I had a conversation with somebody the other day where there's this kind of, I think that there's this kind of like inner war over shining that light. And I think that there's a narrative around that it is let's just say egoic to go and step into that light, or it's going to make much of me, and I shouldn't be known and I shouldn't be seen. And so I'd love to hear how you've kind of towed the line with that of how to step in the light and how to make that your heart alive and walk in the light that is yours. It's been given to you. It's like God's like, here is this beautiful responsibility. I mean, what you're talking about is every father has a dream for their child. And there is this angle of when we kind of stiff arm and say, no, I'm not worthy of that. Or no, that's too big. Or no, just saying no, it's us assuming that we actually know better. So I'd love to hear, how do you toe the line and walk brightly and bravely, yet also with, is it humility? Like what's kind of the counterbalance there that's necessary?
Okay, so again, there's a certain wavelength that we're both on because the fact that you could even ask me that question is crazy. Um, I have done a terrible job over the arc of my life figuring out how to own this because I remember in high school at times being like stepping into arrogance. And it was not a good look. And I remember the Father being like so kind because he saw my youthful zeal, but I know I hurt people. Um, and then the opposite was like, well, I don't want to hurt people and I don't want to be something that's repulsive. I want to draw people to the Father. So it's almost like I watered myself down. I removed my edges. I didn't shine as bright because I didn't know, I didn't want to compete with other people. I didn't want to get the attention. I really, really struggled with it. And I would meet certain guys and they would just be like so strong in who they were. And this idea of confidence was so confusing to me because I thought humility, God resists the proud. I wanted to be humble with everything in me. But if humility equaled weakness, I didn't know how to reconcile it. And there's two things that have been my saving grace here. One of them is that like I'm not on the throne of my life, God is. And when God's on the throne, like everything that I endeavor to do is just to make him big. So that's kind of like a safety net of like, it's not about the Shawn Show. That used to be the name of my podcast because my creative director wanted to name it that. And I thought it was the dumbest thing ever, but I went with it anyway. And then I finally just rebranded it because I was like, that's not me. It's not about the Shawn Show. Like I want to make the Father known. But the other thing, Christine, which I think is actually way more insightful, it's that gifts are meant to be given. Like we know that. I have a gift. Well, that means it's for someone, right? Like who's my gift for? So when I look at the gifting that I have or the gifting that other people have, it's like it's on us to give that away to as many people as possible and to shine as bright as possible because it's not for us. Like my gifting to make the Father known if I just hang on to it and hang out on an island all by myself, it doesn't glorify the Father at all. Like in pouring myself out generously, like that's the most selfless thing I can do. So the most selfless thing anyone can do, all of our listeners, is actually to own the gift that they have and to give it away as generously as possible. Someone else might say, oh, that's arrogance. It's not. Discovering that you are a gift because it's meant to be given, because it's meant to be poured out, it's always in service to somebody else.
It's the most brave thing to believe that we're a gift. You know, to, like you just said, to believe that you're a gift. We were talking earlier about just some of those beliefs in childhood just before we got on the show, and some of the experiences that really kind of created who we are today. And it doesn't necessarily mean that who we are today is who we can be, but to really understand, who am I here in this moment? What shaped me in the past? For that aspect, you know, the core beliefs of being able to even come to that belief, I believe that I am a gift, that I am loved by my Father, that I have a vision that God has for me that is much bigger than anything I could conjure myself. What have you had to do in terms of encouraging people to reconcile in their past, or what's kind of your process in helping them kind of understand and uncover their authentic self? But first, what are the beliefs I currently have that are getting in the way, that are not allowing me access to that authentic self to begin with?
So my like basic framework, and it kind of started from, I got a little inspired by like Seth Godin back in the day, Purple Cow, where it's like people remark on what's remarkable. So like as a branding expert, as someone in marketing, like the end result for the market is you want something that's remarkable, the market cares about it. But remarkable for me, as if you are the brand, if the person is the brand, it's not about trying to fake it or perform. Remember, I'm very anti-performative. So before you can create remarkable, you have to own your authentic brilliance. That's kind of like what I realized, like everybody's authentically brilliant. But in order to own your authentic brilliance, if we back up, you have to come to this place of being in process of like coming to a place of being wholehearted. Because what dies in a person when they live, what shuts down, like the definition of shame literally is wrongness of being. So Christine, you're a child and you're growing up, and I don't know, things happen either through you or to you, and there's that natural feeling of shame because maybe it was wrong or it wasn't that good, and all of a sudden your soul interprets it as there's something wrong with me fundamentally. I wasn't enough, you know, I don't know why my mom left my dad or my dad left my mom or why I got made fun of. But we don't know how to process these traumas. So the conclusion ends up being there must be something wrong with me. And we carry this hidden shame, and all it does is it shuts down your heart, because it's very hard to have an alive heart when you fundamentally feel like there's something flawed about you. So I'm always trying to get to that place of like, you are so worthy of love that it's not simply like God endures your presence. It's like, oh, like if they do everything right, I can stand being in their presence. When you can come to that place and you realize there's actual delight, like the best picture of the father and the mother's heart over a child isn't simply acceptance, it's delight. It's, I delight in you. I want to see you shine. I want to see you overcome. I want to see you be able to take the beauty that you are and just share it with the world, and not be pushed down, kicked down, told that you're this or that. Like bullies are only bullies because they're insecure, because they didn't know that they were loved. Like once you realize that hurt people end up hurting people, it's like there's compassion even on the person that's oppressing, because it's like, oh, I'm sorry your mom and dad didn't convince you that you belonged. But when we have a world of people that actually know that they belong and that they can give from that reservoir of like, I don't need to take from other people. Like I know who I am, and I've been given love so that I can love. That's where I want it. I probably missed your question somewhere along the lines, Christine.
I love this. Well, and it's really a repositioning completely where I'm no longer connected horizontally to the people around us for meaning, but rather I'm actually kind of sourced from within. That is a completely different approach to life. And so it's really again, kind of going back to what are the beliefs about God? And it's so important that we ask these questions. So many times people aren't actually paying attention to their belief systems, but their beliefs are their internal operating system that drive the behavior in their external world. And so this question of, do I believe that I'm merely accepted or tolerated versus delighted in? And Shawn, where and how would you encourage people to kind of assess, what do I believe? Like, what are some questions or a practice that can really help them uncover that to begin with, and then they can go from there?
I mean, if you just do like a simple audit, go in front of the mirror, like look yourself in the eyes. Try to, most people are so uncomfortable with that. But like to the measure at which you can almost embrace and receive self-love, not just to have some like self-love party, but I'm just saying, like, if you're telling me that you can receive love from other people, but you can't fundamentally extend that to yourself, there's a blockage there. There's something there where you haven't forgiven yourself. And sometimes the hardest work we can do is just to look in the mirror and be like, I know you're trying. Like, I know you didn't mean to be an F up. Like, I know you weren't trying to screw up everyone's life when you did this. Like, my whole point isn't you're worthy of love if you can overcome. If you can be a good person, then you're worthy of love. That's not my point. I have really screwed up in life, and I've been surrounded by some other people that have been pretty good screw ups too. I'm probably still better than them at screwing up. But like, the point is to still know that like God looks at your heart. It's not it's not like a permission to just be, I don't know, to get away with anything. It's like kind of like that's where the idea of unconditional love, people are like, oh, it's so scandalous. That means that if I can be loved for anything, that therefore I can get away with anything. And it's like once you understand how love works, it empowers the individual's heart to want to be the best that they can. If as a parent, all you are is like an obedience regulator and you're just regulating whether or not your kids are doing the right thing, you're like the cop, right or wrong. And if they do something wrong, you tell them to go to God and you're just like, that's not good. Like, you're teaching your kids that that's what the face of God looks like, either right or wrong. And it's such a crazy thing that we're entrusted with as parents to actually be like the face, the voice, the hand of God. And it's like, what do you want to extend? Do you want to extend mercy? Do you want to extend grace? Or do you want to extend judgment? I don't want justice most of the time on my
Yeah.
own life, because if I did, like, I fall short, Cassie, like, or Cassie, Christine, so bad. Like,
Yeah.
so I want to operate in the same. Again, I'm so bad at following your questions. I probably,
I love it. This is so good. And Shawn, I would love to hear, you to be able to operate this way with your children. To your point, it stems so much from your view of yourself. And so, was that time in high school really kind of that transformation that was necessary for you to operate in this way? Or was there kind of another moment in life that really had a big impact on your internal life to then be able to show up this way externally?
I mean, I want to give credit to my parents. I spoke at a dental conference one time, and there's this beautiful man, Chuck Blakeman. He's written all these books, great guy. But he was talking about his life story and how pretty much his like parents would leave on vacation with his brother, but not take him along. And he didn't know as a 6 and 7 year old that you didn't have to bake your own birthday cake. Like, it was such a sad story. And then I get up and I was just like, all I ever knew is love. And my mom always told me that, like, all you've ever known is love. So it's like, it is 100% your job to release what you know. But it wasn't in that foundation of love that I actually learned the most of the Father's heart. It was in my coming to grips, like face to face with my own failures. It was endeavoring to be holy, to be like God. And then I'd fall short, and then I'd screw up. And the craziest trap for anybody out there, and I think this is what happens to most people, is that anyone that comes in to receive the love of God, the very first time they receive it knowing that they don't deserve it. It's a free gift that's given, and it's beautiful. It's untainted. It makes them so happy. There's this happy holiness. But then something comes in where after that, it's like, well, Christine, you should know better. And once you know enough about God and you know enough about religion, you then feel like you have to find your way back to God because you shouldn't have screwed up. You shouldn't have fallen. You shouldn't have. And then it just beats you up. And then inevitably people keep drifting and they drift and they drift and they drift. And the trap is religion is like man's attempt to get back to God, where God is like, no, I freely gave it to you. Like I freely gave it to you. And so many times I'd get caught in that trap and I'd try harder and I would just fall, I'd dig a deeper hole. And it wasn't until again, I would just throw myself on the mercy of God. And that's why I realized like, I'm not on the throne of my life where it's like, is Shawn, did he earn enough? Did he do a good enough job? It's all filtered through whether I have self-loathing or what, like self-love in some creepy way where it's all about pride. That's all ego at the source of it. But it's like whether I've been in seasons where I've fallen away from God and done things that I'm not proud of, or whether I get to walk in his grace, it's like, it's all for his glory. Like it's not about me. Like if it wasn't for God and his forgiveness and his mercy, oh my gosh, like I'm capable of anything that's wicked under the sun. And that's where, I don't know, it's just like I have a very healthy compassion for anyone that struggles because I know struggle. So to answer your question, it was the seasons of struggle. It was the seasons of falling flat on my face and only God like convincing me that I was still his. That gave me the Father's heart more than anything.
Wow. Where do you find, that's it's such a beautiful concept that effectively failure is the thing that propelled you into grace, rather than it being the thing that drove you away. Because I think you're right. It's like the drifting, drifting, drifting. I've got two questions, but I think what I want to do is go with this first one. How have you been able to maintain a proper relationship within the confines of, let's say, religion without falling into that? Because I believe you do like attend a religious, I think you do have a religious affiliation, correct?
I do.
So how do you maintain that internal alignment and the internal pursuit in kind of under the guise, like under the umbrella of, as you defined it, which I was so grateful you did, because I think that is so much of what it is. And you have to bring kind of your personal pursuit under the umbrella of religion, which is man's attempt to get back at God. So how do you maintain kind of that relationship in and among so many people that are kind of desperately grasping at something that they already have?
Well, I think you just said it right there. Like once you realize it's a relationship, it's like I'm doing my best to try to walk with the living God that I can't see by faith. And when you start knowing the heart of God and you know like the person of Jesus, I don't know. It's like it's not just like a way of life. It's not just a creed. It's not just a culture. A lot of the times I don't have my kids listen to Christian music because I don't want them to feel like they're growing up in a culture where it's like, oh, I listen to Christian music, so therefore I'm Christian. It's like, no, that doesn't mean anything. Like, um, it's about following a person. I don't know how to say it. It's like marriage. You can be married, and 10 years in, you can have a glorified relationship with a roommate that's called a marriage, but there's not intimacy. You don't know their heart, they don't know yours because you put up so many walls. And on paper, legally, you're married. Optically, you're married. But there's nothing there. Like it's a relationship. Like it's never something you can just chill and coast because you've arrived. Man, when you get to that one place in your marriage, you've arrived. You can take your eyes off of the daily pursuit. You can put it in coast mode and everything's just going to work out. Like, no. Like if you just, and so all of my frames for God are basically what we can see. We see husband and wife relationships. We see father son relationships. These are types and shadows. Like it's so the reason why I say this is because a lot of the times I'm in circles where people might be a little bit more new age and they make God an abstraction, spirit, light, which I love light and spirit, but like they make him faceless. And to me, it's the craziest thing because, Christine, there's nothing more glorious than the fact that I can preferably be in person with someone like you and actually look into your eyes and in that moment know you to the capacity that you let me know you and be known by you to the capacity that I let you know me. And there's just something so crazy about that like to have that intimacy in relationships and then go, yeah, but we're going to make God an abstraction where he doesn't have a face. Like I don't understand that. But back to your question, when people keep it about relationship, it's like it's about knowing someone and trying to walk with them. And to do that, even in normal relationships, you have to be humble. You have to know, like, hey, I'm probably gonna bomb it. I'm probably gonna make mistakes. I don't want to, but like that's okay. You just keep it about relationships. Like I went to all these different churches growing up, all these different denominations. And my mom would always ask us after the service, what did God say to you? Not what did the man or woman of God say? Not what is this church known for? What's holy about the way that these men or women gather? It was always about what's the Spirit speaking to you because she wanted to make sure we were actually following God. And there's no greater adventure than that. Like everyone's longing for something that's like can require all of them and can be this massive, epic, beautiful thing. And there's nothing close to just trying to follow the living God. Like this, it's the greatest adventure that ever could exist.
So good. I'd love to actually ask you something that it sounds like you can't relate to, which I'm grateful for, but I know that there's a lot of folks that can resonate with what you said about marriage, being in a marriage with a where it feels like a roommate. And I'd love to just kind of lean into that a little bit for those who are in that place. What does it look like for you if you were going to advise us? What does it look like to first look in the mirror and then go and kind of approach that relationship where, how do we proceed?
Yeah, I feel like so much of life culturally in the last 10, 15 years has been about the individual. And there's nothing wrong with the individual, but I think this is where it really hurts people is that it becomes about, well, like I don't want someone to endure abuse. I don't want someone to stay in a marriage longer than they should because there literally is again like some sort of physical or emotional abuse. Like I think it's healthy that we've come to the defense of people in that regard. But to the consequence of people making it about themselves. Um, my mom grew up in a really difficult home in South Texas where it was like a little shack, not a lot of space, and there was a sheet that separated the living spaces and sleeping quarters. And unfortunately, she had a father that was very abusive, physically, sexually, and she remembers like being in the corner, like under a little table, holding her grandma's Spanish Bible, which she couldn't read, as she'd be hearing her dad doing all sorts of terrible things to her mom. And her mom ended up, I think, again, staying in the marriage because it was the right thing to do, and ended up getting breast cancer and dying when my mom was like 17, 14, I think, or 17, something like that. Well, my mom then led the charge with her siblings to leave the house because it wasn't safe. And she poured herself into all of her relationships. And then at one point, she just felt so low because she had nothing. She'd lost her mom, didn't have her dad, poured herself into all her relationships, and was at this point where she was just at this all-time low, and she's crying out to God, and she's like, God, like I don't want to live, like I hate my life, like no one cares about me, like, and she's yelling at God, and she's just in anguish and in pain, and she hears him say to her, "Give love," and she's like, "What are you talking about? Like I have nothing." And she hears him again just say, "Give love." And in that moment, because of her pain, she could have chosen the road of victimization, the road of you deserve better. But she chose in that moment to be one that was going to give love. And in a relationship, all I can think about is like what I'm responsible for. And there's been times I haven't loved my wife well. There's been times that I have not seen her that were what, a foot and a half away in bed, but it feels like there's miles between us. And to anyone that's in that situation, it's like all you can do is first and foremost position yourself to receive love from God. The easiest way is to be a conduit and to give love. If you don't have love, like it's the craziest thing. If you don't feel like you deserve it, you feel like you've drifted far, you've bombed everything in life, there is always hope because there is a God that is so fiercely committed to loving you back to life. So step one, find a way to believe that, fight for that, and receive love. And then do the best you can as a broken vessel to just pour out to those in your life. Like the greatest weapon any of us has in our relationships is just to love fiercely, unconditionally, and not demand that the person that we're loving responds. Because love demands that there's free will. It's like that bird that comes and rests in your hand. It's like the gift of love. And you can't hold on to it because then you suffocate it. You just have to believe that it's going to stay there by choice. And if it doesn't because you've done something wrong, you've got to own your story. If you have the courage to write your story, you have to have the courage to own it. And there's going to be a day when I share some of the chapters in my story that, Christine, I'm not allowed to share yet, because I haven't fully shared that or showed it with my kids because they're not old enough. But like with those closest to me in private, I share my story. And I don't always want to do that, but you have to have the courage to do that. So yeah, that's my encouragement.
That's so good. And it's so important, Shawn, because there is such a emphasis on protecting yourself and, getting out of bad relationships. And there's not so much emphasis on, well, how do I fight for it? What does it look like to actually really take the log out of my own eye, and what does it look like to even look in the mirror and see the truth to begin with, and then allow for the receiving of love. When we're talking about posturing ourselves to receive love, what are just some really good ways, maybe just 2 ways that people can kind of intentionally, if they're like, okay, I want to start receiving love, and they just know that there's a void in their life, what are 2 ways that they can just kind of get started and try? but how much of it is trying, right, versus letting and actually opening up?
So I always tell my kids this, like the craziest thing is if in your awareness, you're actually thinking about wanting to connect with God, that already means that he's looking at you. Like there's no way in your own heart that you are going to desire God before he desires you. All we ever do is respond. It's almost like he's the sun and we're the moon, we reflect. So if you ever feel like a drawing to God, just know that he's already there. So he's not there to condemn you. He's not there to beat you up. So if you're already feeling drawn, like know that it's because it's his longing, not yours. And when you realize that, it's so much easier then to receive love, because it's not like, well, God, I'm the one that so bad wants to encounter you. I'm the one that wants to receive you so badly. But where are you? It's like, no. The reason why you're longing, the reason why you're stirred up right now is because he's the lover of your soul and he's been going after you, and he's finally causing something in your heart, an ember, to start glowing. Like that's recognition right away. He's after you. So when you understand he's after you, it changes the conversation, because when you're there, then it's like, okay, God, like have your way. You're wanting to somehow bring me back to life. There's no one better at loving weak and broken people than God. There's nobody better. So I don't care what your situation is. I don't care how much you think you're disqualified from receiving the embrace of the Father, but there's nothing that breaks off that sense of orphanness like the Father's love. So yeah, the hardest thing is just to be like, silent those voices that are so loud, that are like, these are all the reasons why you are. We know we're our own worst critic. When we look in the mirror, we know the ways in which we've fallen. We know the ways in which we don't measure up. If someone has looked in the mirror and they've never seen a monster before, it's like you haven't lived. Like, and to think that God can reach that and call forth the best in you. So yeah, one of the most scandalous things anyone can ever do is try and just sit in the presence of God and receive. Not do something to earn, not say the right words, but just receive who God is. And if there is condemnation, it's the wrong presence. It's not God. You'll know it's God because there's either the still small voice, it's something that leads to peace, or genuinely, it's almost like there's a purity in his touch that doesn't exist anywhere else. He'll pick up the leprous person, and next thing you know, it's like, I'm clean again. And there's no feeling like being clean because it's what we don't deserve. We don't deserve it. Like, it's not because we deserve it. It's the beautiful act of God to reconcile us back to himself, freely given. But yeah, that's what I would say. Just receiving is the hard part.
Yeah, not doing the very thing our culture says where our worth is. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this concept of returning to innocence. And, we talked a little bit about your children and your relationship with them and how they've really kind of grown up on this foundation of love as you did. And where do you find that there's these intentional choices to pursue innocence and then also to be kind of inundated with culture? I loved how you said something very kind of the maybe even the antithesis of what most people would assume when you were like, I don't actually want my kids to really go and listen to Christian music because I don't want that to be the thing by which they identify their religion. So then how do you kind of encourage innocence? Because to that point, you mentioned earlier that you really found that to be holy like your father allowed for access. So if we're kind of drawing that through line of, okay, with holiness, people shall know God. So if I was to pursue holiness, what does that look like? It's not necessarily just about the music you listen to. And I know that does play a part to an extent. I'm sure, you're not having your kids listen to trash, but I'm just curious, what are the principles of innocence that really have guided your relationship with the Father?
Did you ever see The Blind Side?
I did.
So there's some really profound line in that movie, and it's when the mom, played by Sandra Bullock, um, asks the, I don't know his name, but Michael Orr,
Oh, yes.
how did you make it out of there? Hurt Village, because he grew up seeing, his mom was doing drugs, all these things. How did you make it out of there? And he said, every time my mom would do something that she shouldn't do, she would tell me, close your eyes. And he's like, and that's all I did as I closed my eyes. There's something about the fact that our eye gates receive light and also the absence of light. Um, I tell my kids this all the time. Like, if you have to close doors in your life, go ahead. You got to close them. If you've ever done gardening, the best time to deal with the weed is when it's just sprouting. If it becomes some like little tree, some sapling, like it's really hard to pull that out. So it's kind of like the easiest door to close is the one you never open. The easiest way to keep light in you is to not look at darkness. So much of it is just a posture of like intentionality of like, I'm not letting my curiosity get the best of me. I actually know that lots of these roads are not for my good. Like, I don't need to try every drug to know I probably shouldn't take that drug. Like, wisdom is saying, oh, someone else had this story and they got all muddied up and mucked up. I should probably just listen to that and not do that, you know? So wisdom is like having the ability to learn from someone else or something else. And I just want my kids to be as free as possible. But for example, we were talking in the green room, as a kid, I think it was fourth grade, I was on the bus and some of the older kids in the back were like, hey, we have this Beckett of, cards and values. You should come check this out. Like, we want to show you something about these cards and what they're worth. And in this magazine was another magazine inside that was, a porno magazine. And I didn't know exactly what I was looking at, in the sense of I'd never seen a woman like that before as in fourth grade. But there was something that just felt so defiling. It wasn't because my church or my religion was like, Shawn, that's wrong. It was because I have a conscience inside, and something about it just, it didn't feel right. It wasn't clean. It wasn't pure. And it was meant to try to defile and make me feel like there was something wrong with me. And thankfully, the way my parents had taught me was like, when you are struggling, you can come to us. So I went to them and I said, hey guys, like, I didn't want to, but I saw this and I just feel so bad. And they didn't beat me up. And they're like, oh, you're so bad because you did this. You looked at this. They just put their arms around me and like prayed over me and like loved me until it's like my innocence was restored. They got that hook out, the hook that was trying to stay there, that would just continue to, when you feel at the identity level that you're worthless, you continue to do worthless things. I'm only stopping because I know you unmuted, so I wasn't sure if there's
Yeah.
okay.
I man, please keep going. This is so good, Shawn.
There's so many princes and princesses that find themselves in the gutter,
Mhm.
and they're eating out of trash cans and living in slums, not realizing that they have a place in the palace. Like, they don't believe that they're a prince or princess anymore. It's
Right,
not that the father has kicked them out.
right.
It's like the prodigal son. He went in his father's name to do whatever he wanted to do to build his own kingdom. And so many of us, we do that in our youthful zeal, not knowing any better, and we get our knees scraped up. But it's not about the falling and getting scraped up and doing wrong things. It's about what that tells our identity and how it shapes our identity if we allow it. That's where it's dangerous. One of the biggest things that frustrates people, and this is not a God thing, this is just like a marketplace thing, is that I tell people there's the problem of freedom. And that is, you can literally do anything in life, but we put up these cages because we don't like that we actually have freedom. We'd rather not have freedom. No, you don't understand, Shawn. I don't have freedom. I actually can't start a business. I actually can't have a successful relationship. You don't understand. I can't reconcile with my dad. And we have all these reasons why. No. Like, I'm just not worthy of love and people leave me, so I can't have a relationship. I'm just not smart enough, or I don't. And the reality is, like, when you embrace who God's called you to be, there is so much freedom that it's scary. It's like, what do I do with it? I can actually be whole. I can know love without shame. I can create something remarkable when God breathes through me and in a creative way, and that can bring abundance into my life. I can have happiness and joy and fulfillment. Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's scary. Like, I'd rather just stay in this prison and complain about the fact that I'm in this prison. And I have compassion on you. I get it. Like, it is not easy to believe and to have, and the reason why we don't always want to believe, Christine, and I get this, it's because hope deferred makes the heart sick. But desire fulfilled is a tree of life. I want people. I'm sorry if I give hope and it scares them because they're afraid they're going to get heart sick again. I'm willing to become someone's pesky friend because I believe desire fulfilled is worth it.
I think we need much more of that. I think we need so much more of that, Shawn. There's just such a direct correlation, and I think that this is actually such a full circle moment because we're talking about what makes your heart alive and having wholeheartedness, wholehearted living. And then you just said desire fulfilled is a tree of life. It is so terrifying to want, and it feels selfish. And then there's this whole mantra and kind of all these narratives actually in a lot of times in religious settings where it's to want anything or to desire something is actually very selfish. And so it kind of goes back to being brave enough to step in the light and take up space and give the gift which we've received. But that desire, the element of desire, I think that actually people are afraid to want because it could be corrupted or it could be something that controls me and I don't know what's going to happen. It's the uncertainty of desire that allows for freedom to be terrifying, because it's not just, okay, well, what am I going to do with it? I might have to take responsibility and work, but I also have found that there is something scary and uncertain about desire in and of itself. How do you relate with desire, and how do you maybe even vet your desires to ensure that they are going to get you closer to the relationships that are your ideal, the business that's your ideal, your own self that's your ideal?
Well, first off, it starts with the fact that like my desire could never eclipse God's, meaning like a third of the angels fell, and God's like, okay. 100% of mankind fell, and he was like, no, like, I have to have them. Like, when you see God as anything other than having so much desire and zeal for his house, zeal for those that belong to him, um, he is so zealous. So it's like, there is a holy desire, there's a holy passion. It's fiery, it's all consuming. And then there's also the flesh that has desires that aren't going to produce life. And I don't think oftentimes it's that difficult for us to realize which is which. Um, like, like most indulgences or desires of the flesh are just kind of baseless indulgences that are like in the moment, they're loud, they promise fulfillment, and they leave you empty. You know that they weren't right when you look back on it. So it's like, for example, let's just say, my son is having a imagination that's not that great. Oftentimes I'll tell him, keep going with that imagination, believe it or not. Don't just like with guys, it's like, don't just have it stop at the, oh my gosh, me and this woman and this thing happened and it was amazing. Yeah, it'd be great for it to stop there, but don't keep playing the reel. And now all of a sudden you're 5 minutes later, you're 10 minutes later. How does that actually feel when accountability sets in? When you realize, oh my God, that actually happened. I actually did whatever I was thinking of doing. Doesn't feel good, does it? Well, it's not God if it's going to leave you completely empty. Feeding what narrative? God's narrative is he wants you to feel like you belong and that you're amazing and that like you're worth dying for. The enemy's narrative is just that you're worthless and you're despicable and you're wretched. So anything that's led to self-loathing, chances are those weren't good desires. But it's like with the heart, it's like I just try to leave my heart surrendered and yielded. There's not too many amazing things out there. Like wholesome things might seem boring, but it's like that's where life is. I was saying this the other day to someone. If you could put me on an island and give me everything that I could possibly want at the snap of my finger, the most indulgent foods, the greatest devices or technology or cars, mansions, the richest fragrances, whatever. But I couldn't be around another person ever again. What's the point of everything? Like, just ask that to anybody. What's the point of everything if you don't have someone?
So good.
You
John.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. John, I'd love in kind of wrapping us up here. I'd love to hear, as you're a father yourself, and as you are giving your children this home that is full of innocence and love, and you're really guiding them well, even so, what's kind of the number one nemesis that you've got to look out for in culture today?
Oh man. I don't know. I'm not much of a cultural expert per se, but that's where I think the idea of innocence is such a provocative idea because it flies in the face of the world. Innocence is looked down upon even more than purity. I remember my sister in college was wanting to write a book, Purity is the New Sexy. And I loved that idea where she's like, a Christian girl, and she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, it is so sexy for me to walk in my purity, and that should be sexy for a guy. And I was like, Amber, you write that book. Like, that's awesome. But like innocence is just so countercultural. Um, and I don't think we've been told that like it's okay to want to be rebuilt in a way that I don't know, we're not broken. Like, I don't know. But for my kids, Christine, like what lands in a clear way is like part of the culture that I'm always trying to keep is like, they'll hear a message about, reaching the lost because, they'll be at church or a youth group and they'll go to some youth camp and it's all about, reaching the lost. And I'm like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with reaching the lost. But this is kind of like a Jordan Peterson stewardship thing. Like, there's no point in reaching the lost if your little brother that lives with you, that when he offends you, if you don't know how to forgive him and love him, like this is your training ground. We are weak and broken people that are learning to love weak and broken people. And you learn love in the committed relationships that you have. It's mom, it's dad, it's brother, it's sister. It's in the unsexy relationships, not the people you're trying to show up for to give them your best when you're faking it. Not the people you're putting on a smile for, like in the dating relationship. Oh my gosh, why it's so deceiving is because any guy can put on his best when you're dating. And then all of a sudden he goes back to his time, decompresses, whatever. You realize in marriage really, really quickly that people weren't holy before. They were just undisturbed. And you are no longer undisturbed when you're married because that roommate never leaves. Like there is no such thing as social distancing. And so it's a great sanctifier if you will cooperate with it. And that's what I tell my kids. Like when your little brother offends you, like just go inside. Like what is it that offended me? And just work on yourself. Like humble yourself. Apologize to your brother because you're learning how to love. And that lesson is going to teach you how to love in every relationship in your life.
Mm. Thank you so much, Shawn, you've just given us so much wisdom, and I'm so grateful for your time and for everything you shared this morning. How can people follow you and stay in touch and keep learning from you?
I don't actually know if I'm super active. Maybe YouTube, I'm doing some stuff there. If not, my website, it's just my name, ShawnZajas.com. But yeah, I'm kind of just starting my journey of showing up in the marketplace
Mm,
with this message,
mm,
um, because I haven't had the courage to follow it earlier. And that's why, like, it's never too late. Like, I just turned 40. Like, I would have loved to have walked in this when I was 20, but
mm,
don't ever let God tests us more with time than anything else.
mm.
So you could be 70 out there and think that your world is over and that your time got passed by, and this could be your greatest season. So it's never, ever, ever too late to say yes to something that God wants to do in you that's going to be redemptive and beautiful.
I love it. Friend, thank you so, so, so much. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. Shawn, so grateful for you and so grateful for the life that you've lived, and even just ending on that message that it's never too late. In fact, this could very well be the challenge that you all needed to step up and step in the light and start using your gifts, because it's actually not about us at all.